Hey friends, thanks for coming back to my channel. My name is Kaylin, and in today's video, I just wanted to have a little candid conversation with you guys about a few things that I have absorbed or gathered or learned through my homeschooling journey under the topic of how it relates to public school and just some frustrations that I've been feeling there. So if you are new to homeschooling or you're feeling a little apprehensive about your homeschooling journey, then hopefully some of these thoughts will be helpful to you as you kind of try to work with the public school system or whatever. So let's go ahead and get started. So as I was thinking about making this video, I was getting really passionate about it, and I didn't know exactly what to title it. So, the title that I chose is, of course, Public Schools Don't Know Anything. And coming from a public school background, both as a student and as an educator, I really have felt a lot of discord, I guess you could say, with how public school has been doing a lot of things. So I just want to give you a couple of examples of things that I've encountered. Recently, this is our first year that we have used a third-party schooling system to help supplement some of our financial expenses in homeschool. And they give us a stipend at the beginning of the year. And as a part of that stipend, or kind of as an addendum to that, we are required to kind of hand in every week what it is that our students are learning. So for the first 4 years that we homeschooled, I didn't affiliate myself with any other third-party schooling system because I didn't want to have any requirements. I live in the state of Utah, which doesn't have any state requirements or anything that we need to turn in at a state level. And so I had a lot of freedom. When I decided to kind of partner myself with this third-party school, I did it strictly for the money. And you can judge however you want to, but I only wanted to get the stipend because I knew it would help with some of the expenses that go with homeschooling. And so when I was looking into it, I chose the path of least requirements, the one that it was as much freedom as I could have. My only requirement being that every week I needed to submit in Word form, just like a text document, a few sentences that we have completed. And then at the end of every quarter, I have to submit some photographs or some samples, video footage or something like that of our week over the last, I think it's 9 weeks, I'm assuming, but it might be more or less than that. Anyway, so that all went well. The first 9 weeks were fine, and I felt really confident. I'm usually really on time when it comes to deadlines, and so that was the case with this. I was always on time, submitted all of my work. And when it came time for the quarter, I submitted my samples, and thus the beginning began. I had received a notice that the school was like, this isn't enough information, or I don't have enough samples for me to be able to determine whether or not your student has learned enough. And so I was really miffed by that. They gave me a super low score for my student, saying that he's not passing these subject areas. And I was really bothered by it because, of course, as a homeschooling mom, I know exactly where my student is, and I know our weaknesses, and I know our strengths, and I know kind of what's going for us. And so to be told you're not doing it right was kind of my first red flag. Second quarter happened. Now this was the semester or the quarter where we were traveling, and so a lot of our work was experience-based. I didn't have a lot of papers and that sort of thing to submit. So once again, I submitted what I had, what I felt was a pretty good representation of what we had learned. Pictures of us at Monticello, at Washington, D.C., at Yorktown. I mean, this is some serious education happening here. And once again, whoever they are, the administrators or the teachers who look over this work, sent me back a notice saying this isn't content enough that we can grade. We're not understanding, what it is that your student's learning. So the last quarter, again, just one more example is, especially in our English language or our language arts unit subject, If you're new to my channel, then I'll just kind of give you a quick background. Language arts has always been our weakest subject. I've struggled finding a curriculum that really gels with me as the teacher, my students as the kids. Honestly, understanding what language arts includes, what it is they want me to be teaching. I feel like we've been teaching nouns every year, and so anyway, it's always been a struggle for me, and this year is no different. So at the end of third quarter, which I talked about in my update video, which was a while ago, my student my third grader got really into writing, and he had read a book about, it's called Kingdom Keepers. It's about Disney. It's like kids that go to Disneyland or Disney World at night, and they try to like save the park or whatever. And he just super got into it. He loved that book. He read the series, and then he decided he wanted to write his own book about kids that save Disneyland, kind of along the same lines, but it was very creative. And so I just was like, this is fantastic. If you're excited about doing school, let's do it. So he wrote the book, and then just like on regular paper. And then the next week or 2 weeks later, we went through that line by line and made corrections, including grammar, punctuation, capitalization. We even did vocabulary, like what's a different word that you could use here instead of the same word which you used in the previous sentence. We talked about author and illustrator and of course storyline. Anyway, all the things that go into writing a story. And it was a really good book. And then of course, I talked about this in my last one, but I'll show you really quick because a lot of people talked about these. I bought these on Amazon. They came in a pack of 6. I think they were less than $10. It's a hardcover book, and then I'm going to guess 20 pages maybe inside of a really good quality paper. So if your student's using a marker to illustrate, it's not going to bleed through. They were really a great quality. So my student transferred all of those edits into this book. I took all the pictures, I sent it over to the school, and as you can guess, she responded and she said, although writing a book is nice, it's not comprehensive enough in the language arts learning, and so I need to know how much time is your student spending in language arts. And this is where this video kind of came from, was what? Like, I just don't understand what it is that public school is looking for. And as a teacher in a public school world, I knew the way that I kind of measured my students' learning was through product development, right? Like, what did you produce for me? What papers have you given me? Did you answer the questions correctly? How well did you understand the content? And then, of course, are you sitting in class listening to me and that sort of thing during our classes? And then during tests, can you produce all of the information? And I think that this is where the public school world is coming from, especially in this third-party sector, where the only thing that she can base the learning on is what I produce, what I hand to her. And in her mind, thus representing the public school for me, is that writing a book is not enough. I need you to have a piece of paper that has a question that your student can then show me an answer to. What is a noun? Blank, right? And then pick the 3 proper nouns, pick the 3 common nouns. And I was super annoyed by that and feel like, you know what? Like, this is one reason among many that moving away from public school is both really advantageous for homeschoolers, but also really difficult for homeschoolers, because we've been trained in this line of, meet the test or answer the questions, or your student is here and they need to get to here. And that's kind of a hard world for us to be able to navigate when we are responsible for our child's education, especially kind of on the heels of my last video, when we want to move away from work texts and have more experience-based learning, nature studies, Charlotte Mason, literature studies, poetry tea time, like all of these experience-based learning platforms, which seem to be more engaging for everybody involved, right? All of your children, both preschool age up to early or late elementary, maybe even high school. I don't have students that old, so I don't know that world, but as well as for the teacher. So that was my example number 1. Now, example number 2 comes from my 5-year-old, and she's just in an interesting grade level. She's beyond her academic level, like her age level, she's beyond academically. And so I always have a hard time trying to figure out like what grade to put her in when I'm talking to you guys. So she's doing this online preschool program. And so it's through a third-party vendor. And every once in a while they have to call me and they talk to me about like, hey, this is where your student is. This is how she's doing. And so while I'm having this conversation with the lady on the phone, she was like, your daughter's doing really great. She is just now going into the first grade reading level, and she is a 91 percentile. Anyway, so she's giving me all these statistics about how great my daughter's doing in the program and how impressed she is, and all these, she's doing a great job, yada, yada, yada. And I said, okay, great. And she says, now I've noticed that your daughter's only doing 4 days a week. Our school is only a 4-day-a-week school week, and I do not make her do schoolwork on Friday. And this third-party vendor says, well, she needs to be doing 20 minutes 5 days a week, 6 if you can get it, but for sure she needs to have these 20 minutes 5 days a week in order for her to continue through the program and make progress. And I wanted to be like, okay, can we rewind back to the conversation we were having a minute ago when you were saying how great she was doing? And the kind of facilitator continues to say, we really want to make sure she hits her benchmarks. And if she doesn't hit those benchmarks and doesn't progress through the program, then, that's what those 5 days a week are for, so that we can ensure that all of our students. And I thought, what is the benchmark here? And it was kind of an aha moment for me, because I feel like a lot of times this benchmark is the same to this third-party group that I am referring to, as well as most of public school. And that is, how much time is your student spending in school? How much time is your student spending, right? In public school, everything is counted by the minute. And that's like a state mandate. You need to have 15,000 minutes, right? Or whatever it is. If you have a snow day, you have to make it up at the end. It has nothing to do with how much academic content your student is learning or retaining. It has everything to do with how many minutes is your student in our school. And it's the same with this third-party group that I was just mentioning, where she says, how much time is your daughter doing in this reading program? And she's not meeting that time mark. And I said, you just told me that as a 5-year-old going into kindergarten, she's reading at a first grade level. So why are you so concerned with her making sure she's getting the 20 minutes 5 days a week? And it's the same with what my son was going through when she says, well, I need to know, how much time is your son spending on language arts? So this is just the content of the whole video. This is like where I'm coming from, is that public school doesn't get it. Like, they just don't get it, because to them, they have to try and ensure that every student has the same exposure to and the same opportunity to learn as the next student. And in homeschool, it's not that way for us, right? We know the learning path of each of our students. And for some students, that's going to be faster. And for other students, that's going to be slower. I changed my language a long time ago when I'm talking to my students, like, you're on level 3, you're on level 2, instead of using grade 3 and grade 2, because grade is immediately associated with their peers and what grade their peers are in. All of my son's peers are in 3rd grade, and so he associates himself as in 3rd grade, which is fantastic. But he's at a level 1 spelling. Let's be honest. I mean, you're going to have to go way back, but spelling's been a weak spot for us, and I've got plans for next year. But so we're at all different levels, right? My daughter is going into kindergarten according to the age group, because she's a fall birthday, but she's at a level 1 reading. Do you understand? So that's kind of where this video is coming from, is that if you are new to home education, that it's a skill that you need to practice, or kind of a mindset that you need to practice, in that how much time is spent in each subject level is not the benchmark. That is not why you're doing home education. Most homeschoolers only homeschool for a few hours a day. Public school, it's around 8 hours. For my family, we do it about 2.5 hours a day. And as the student grows older, of course, they have more of a workload, but it's not about how much time your student is spending in their subject area. It's how much content that they're learning and how much are they retaining. And which is why when I was saying we went to Monticello, which is Thomas Jefferson's house, or we went to Yorktown, or we went to Jamestown back when we were in the historic Triangle in Virginia, and we would walk around those places for hours, but the amount of academic content that my students are absorbing could not be measured. I mean, I never did that when I was a kid. And so for the teacher to come back to me and say, now that doesn't count, because that's just a field trip, and we need to have some proof that your student learned something. It's such a blessing to be in a homeschool world, especially now that I've been doing it for a lot of years, to be learning the differences between a public schooled child at home and a homeschool child, right? Homeschool is not public school at home, and people say that all the time, but learning the differences is something that comes over time. And the benchmark is not how much time are you spending in each subject area. The benchmark is not what is the grade level that your child is in. That was kind of another side thought, is lots of times when I was a public school teacher, students would fail my classes. I taught history. Students would fail my classes year after year after year. I always had failing students, but they never came back to my history class to relearn the information. They just went to the next grade, right? And so that's something that we do here at Homeschool, is that if you don't absorb the content that as your teacher and your mom, I feel like is important, then you're going to need to redo that information, and we will stay in level 1, 2, or 3 until that information is absorbed. And sometimes the curriculum, the product that I'm trying to teach with, is the failure. And sometimes it's just a hard concept and we can't ever figure it out, which is spelling for us. But anyway, hopefully, I don't know, it might be kind of a jumbled thoughts video, but I was really thinking about it a lot over the past few days, that public school really doesn't get it, and they're doing the best that they can with the number of students that they have to deal with every single day, and I am not sure there's another way to do it. But the benefit is that I am not responsible or required to have my student trained that way. I don't have to use their curriculum and their time spots and their benchmarks, right? I get to do my own thing, and that's the blessing. A lot of you have said, because of the states that you're in, you have to submit or turn in a lot of paperwork because the public school just doesn't get it. They just don't get it, and there's not always a way around it, and sometimes we have to just roll our eyes and do what they say based on the requirements of, one state versus another. But I will never move out of the state of Utah so long as my students are being schooled, because right now, at least, God help us, we don't have any requirements from the state. And so that's a blessing for us. So anyway, this has been kind of a fun chat. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you think that this will be encouraging for another friend or family member of yours, please share it with them. Give me a thumbs up if it was helpful for you guys. And of course, thank you for always being a part of my channel and our homeschooling journey here. So we'll see you in another video.